Hey everybody, this is Toby Eunice with the Gypsy Kiss. Stick with me a couple of seconds and we'll dance the Fenndango. So, everybody, welcome to the Forrest Fenn Friday Night Fenndango, where we open up the phone lines and the text messages at the 1-800 number. We should be seeing chat from the various streams that we're making tonight. We're out to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope/Twitter tonight. So I'm looking forward to an active night. I have the joint kind of inbound chat in front of me, and I saw Copper Dan come in the room. And Copper Dan, I just got I was busy all day today. I just got your email and wasn't actually prepared, wasn't planning or prepared to promote your new product line tonight. We'll do that on Tuesday, so please bear with me. So here's the plan for tonight. In just a few minutes, I'm going to open up the 1-800 telephone line. I'm looking forward to you guys calling in and asking your questions about the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt and making some comments as well. And I'll try to address them as much as possible. I don't have everything about the Forrest Fenn treasure in my memory, but I'm hoping that you'll forgive my faux pas, and perhaps those of you in the chat room can help me. Shelley Carney is in the chat room this evening under her Shelley Carney identity. And so if you have any questions and I miss them, please let her know so that she can pick up on them and send them over to me. And the way that she can do that is by texting them to the 1-800 number. So here's what you have available tonight. It's hard for me to watch the chat as it scrolls by. So if you have a question and you don't want to get on the phone, just send a text to the 1-800 number. You can see it right below me, 1-800. You know what? I made a mistake with Shelley last night. Yeah, that is the correct number. So the correct number, you can send a text to 1-800-947-1043. If you decide to do that, make sure you include at least your first name and the state in which you are located, and so that I can tell people who's reaching out to us and where you're from. So that's one option. I will take those questions as they pop up on my screen here. The second option is that you can call the 1-800 number. I will answer it when I see the call. I'm going to ask you your name, and all you need to do is give me your first name and from what state you're calling, and then I'll ask you what question or comment about the Fenn treasure hunt would you like to make. Now, I'm going to limit those calls to 2 to 3 minutes so that we can get as many people in as we can. But I'm also going to give the time. If you have a longer comment to make, I'll give you the time. If you can indeed limit it, that would be really helpful. I'm going to start the night by going through the list of text messages and voicemails. Hang on, I'm hearing a pop in this microphone. I just need to get it out of the way. The list of voicemails and text messages that I have received. I'm still hearing the pop. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, that's better. I'm going to go through the lists of text messages and voicemails that I've received already this week, and we'll start there. And then again, as you guys have any new text messages or any new phone calls that you'd like to make, please feel free to do so, and I will do my best to make sure they're taken care of. So. Obviously, Super Chat questions get priority, as Jimmy has mentioned. As a matter of fact, let me go over to the window and make sure you do have access to Super Chat. There's the Super Chat symbol down at the bottom of the screen. Click on that, and it highlights your question and raises it to the top of the screen. So I'll make sure that I address it there. So I'm going to turn this screen on chat and not look at myself. Okay. So great. I will go as long as we have activity in the room tonight, and it could be a very short night if there's no activity other than you guys having a conversation. The other thing that I want to remind you of is that tomorrow night at 8 p.m., I believe Fenn Treasure Hunters have a show planned for 7 p.m. After they're done at 8 p.m., I'm going to restream So we've had people say, I never get to be in the chat room when you're streaming your shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I just included Wednesday. So what I'm doing tomorrow night is I'm simply going to restream the Tuesday show, the Wednesday show, and the Thursday show. And I'm restreaming them with just the shows themselves. I'm not doing the after presentation chat conversation because it's not going to make any sense to anyone because you won't be able to see the chat. But the chat line will be open. And so if you want to come in, watch those, and commiserate with your fellow searchers in the chat room, you're perfectly welcome to do that. But again, it's going to be a stream of a pre-recorded video, those pre-recorded videos being the Tuesday show, the Wednesday show, and the Thursday show. Okay? So you guys can have fun with that, get together on a Saturday night. I will be playing poker. I don't play poker that early. Okay, so let me start with what I've got already and see if that stimulates any conversation. Make sure you let me know if there's anything going on with my audio or video. I think it looks all okay, looks and sounds all okay to me. Now, the other thing I want to remind you of is that when you do call in, before you make your call, make sure you turn down the volume on your computer. Otherwise, we start getting a looping effect, and we won't be able to understand each other. Okay, Davio, I'm talking to you, brother. Okay, let's see what we got here. So this is from Art, a text that I received earlier the week. Art says, I'm a total beginner and I'm not sure this is appropriate to ask. Please just ignore and forgive me if it isn't. What do you all think about Agua Fria near Santa Fe and also the Rio Chama River? Would it be a good place to start? Pace. That's him, not me. So Art, Agua Fria in near Santa Fe is not in the search area. It is not at least 8.25 miles north of Santa Fe. Perhaps if you wanted to start there and then move north from that, it is possible. I know some searchers have used that as a basis for their solutions, but to the best of my knowledge, it pretty much doesn't fit with most solutions, as it simply is not north. Fenn has said the treasure is hidden in the mountains north of Santa Fe. He said that in the book. Then later on, he indicated that it was because people were digging up neighbors' backyards. He said it's at least 8.25 miles north of Santa Fe. And then he said it was in the Rocky Mountains. And that area on Agua Fria, having lived there the early part of my life, is not in the Rocky Mountains. It's the high desert at that point. So I wouldn't think that was a good place to start. The second thing is the Rio Chama. I know the Rio Chama has been the focus of a lot of searchers, and as a matter of fact, if you go back to our blog, gypsykiss.com, and you go to the photo section, I think they're called our photo albums. Click on that, and you go back to our first recon way back in 2013. My son Jason and I believe Jason is in the room tonight. He and I went on that, had the Rio Chama as a recon possibility. We thought that, and I don't know whether you guys have seen it, but every once in a while I'll open up my book to the poem page, and you'll see the notes that I made on that poem, literally just after I bought the book, that led me to the Rio Chama. So we went to the Rio Chama. We got caught in a summer storm and had to stay overnight, although we were fully prepared for it. We couldn't make it up the other side of the hill in the valley that we were in. Jason made me get in the river. It was up to my chest right here. I nearly drowned to go off to a snake-filled island to look for the treasure. So actually, I asked him to do that. He volunteered to do that. So we thought it was a pretty good location, but it was a good first experience. And this is what I tell new searchers. As a matter of fact, I've written this in my blog. And that is the first time you go out boots on, because this was our experience, the first time you go boots on the ground, you're going to discover at least two things. Number one, you're going to discover that the problem is much bigger and much smaller than you imagined. And secondly, your first solution was crazy wrong. Because that's been our experience, and I think for the most part, all first-timer boots on the ground experience. As for going, I haven't gone back to the Rio Chama. We haven't gone back to the Rio Chama. We have better locations. I think it has some possibilities, and what leads you there, of course, is the first thing that you'll find when you do a search is that it's the home of the New Mexico record brown trout, which has been, I don't know, they call them stuffed, has been mounted, and it hangs in the Cooper Ranch store right above the put-in for the rafters that are heading down the Chama River. So it's, in terms of clue connection, it's a very enticing location, but we couldn't make it work. The other thing is that a lot of the far side of the river is on the Jicarilla Apache reservation, and we don't think that Fenn would have put the again, I should qualify, what you hear tonight are all my opinions, so don't take them too seriously. They're based on our experiences and our directions and, those kinds of things. So next text message, let's see what we've got here. Oh, long text message. Let me see who this is from. It's a voicemail, so we can play a voicemail. Let's see how this sounds. Hang on just a second. And you should be able to hear this voicemail. It's 2 minutes long. Let's see what he's got.
Hi, my name's Josh Fisher, and I'm from Suquamish, Washington. And I just wanted to call and leave a comment. Maybe you guys can talk about it at some point. Questions that need to be asking. Why does Forrest Fenn have the great Chief Sitting Bull's red peace pipe, or chanupa? I grew up on an Indian reservation out here and know just a little bit about Indian country. I think his whole poem and all his books and everything is a depiction of the Native American ceremony. And what I know of reading from his books and things that I've picked up from his books are pretty bone-chilling, and have helped me to get to the place where I am with myself today. I want you guys to talk about that, and I want you to think about it. Why would he have Sitting Bull's peace pipe? I called and talked to him on the phone on several different occasions. I told him about myself and everything pertaining to it, and he told me congratulations at one point. And he told me to wait till the mud dries to go. I truly believe that the chest is sitting on Indian land. The whole United States is actually Indian land, Turtle Island. But I'm not really good. I thought I was going to be talking to you guys live. I didn't know I was going to be leaving a voice message. These things in his book, here I'll give you a little hint. Page 117, Thrill of the Chase, is a picture of Forrest Fenn sitting on his plane, on the wing of his plane. And on his left knee, there's a marking.
All right, end of call. Wow, that is a lot to discuss. So a couple of things. Number one, I do want to address the issue of Sitting Bull's peace pipe. I think what Forrest has said in the past is that the pipe that he owns is a spitting image of a pipe that Sitting Bull was holding in an image that was taken, before Sitting Bull died. And I think what he was implying was that he doesn't have the provenance. He doesn't have the paperwork that actually indicates that ties the pipe that he owns to the one that's in the photograph of Sitting Bull. So I know that as much as he said is that it looks exactly like, and he creates this image of the test that I think he and his daughter did using Photoshop and overlaying a photograph of the pipe that he owns with the pipe that Sitting Bull is holding in the picture. And I think the most that he's willing to admit is that the pipe that he owns looks exactly like the one that's in the photograph of Sitting Bull. So that's the first thing. The second thing is relating the poem, the solution in the poem, to Native American cultures and ceremonies is damned interesting. I have never heard that before, nor have I explored it, so I don't know how to address it. But I can tell you that from a researcher's perspective, it sounds very, 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 very interesting. And then the last point, whether or not it's on Native American or tribal land, I think the distinction, I think you could say that at one point, all America was Native American land. I think what he very specific, well, he's never actually said it's not on tribal land. There is no sentence in which Forrest Fenn has said, don't go looking on, it's not going to be on tribal land. He just warns you that it's going to be a place on which that it's going to be, if you do recover the treasure, it's going to be easy for you to own the treasure. And the likelihood of that happening on tribal land is slim to none, unless, of course, you are a Native American, which opens up another question. Did he hide the treasure expressly on tribal land so that he could return the favor of all the artifacts that he collected, perhaps, and this is purely theoretical based on that call that I just heard. Could it be that he hid the treasure on tribal land for the purpose of returning the favor to the Native Americans for all the artifacts that he had collected over his lifetime? Wow. All that from one call, huh? So, see how much fun we can have if you call in and ask these kinds of questions? Okay, let me go back and see what's next. Got another voicemail. Let's play this one. And I've got to, forgive me for that volume bump. I can't, make the change until I actually hear it and see it on my...
My name is Ben Coe, and I live in Tobaccoville, North Carolina. My question is, what do you guys think about the dove sitting in the moon? Thanks much. Bye.
So Ben has called in the past. I recognize the name and I recognize his location, Tobaccoville, North Carolina, which is a beautiful name actually when you consider where he's living and how many farmers make their living in that area. I hope those tobacco farms were preserved after the most recent Hurricane Florence. So I've looked at that picture that contains the doves, the white dove sitting in the curve of the crescent moon, and of course it has to be some metaphor for something, because that can't happen. A dove can't sit in the unless it's a metaphor, and unless it's a art that represents that metaphor, a dove can't actually sit in the curvature of the crescent moon. But it's one of those images that I look at and I wonder, and I've never come to any real conclusion about it. So if you guys have some ideas about what the significance, what the significance of that dove sitting in the moon, to me it's nighttime when he in that image, and I can't remember, is that the one where he's sitting on the tombstones, or is that the one where he's chopping wood? Well, one of those pictures. I don't have it handy, and again, we shouldn't use my memory as a basis for any of these conversations. But if you guys have any ideas about exactly what the symbolism, if you will, of that dove sitting in the crescent moon, share it in the chat room, and I'll make sure that Ben is made aware that you guys discussed it, because I don't have anything creative or original to address it with, other than I feel like you wouldn't have painted it, that you wouldn't have illustrated it in that way unless it had some sort of symbolic meaning. I'm going to clear my throat, so just give me a second. I'm going to mute myself. Okay. Wow, that was very radio. Okay, let me go to the next one here. And this is another voicemail. And actually, I heard this one before. It's interesting. It's not on topic, but let's listen to it, okay?
Hello, may I speak to Forrest Fenn, please? Oh, wait, I got this number. Okay. It says it's live. Obviously, I'm not live, so please don't put my voice on your show yet until we can speak.
Too late.
I have one silly question. How do you get from Invictus to a yellow dinghy to a kazoo? My name is Doug, and I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've gone 3 times now, and it's... I thought I had it, but I don't have it. But I'm on to it now, so... Anyway, I'd like to speak to someone about...
Okay, that was Doug from New Orleans, Louisiana. He would like to speak to someone. And if you feel like you would like to call Doug back, I have his phone number, and I'll give it to you, and you can give Doug a call back. I didn't get the thing about how do you go from Invictus to a yellow thingy to a kazoo. So I imagine that at some point in time, Fenn has mentioned all of those things, but I cannot see the connection. So I don't know. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. All right, long text message. Oh, you know what? I know this is from Jana, and I don't know if she's in the room right now. I forgot what she's from Minnesota. I forgot what screen name she uses, but let me read it. Jana, this is for you. Haha, oops. I had phone trouble the last 2 days and didn't mean to send that. Oh, so she sent something before that. Let me see what the send that is. Oh, it's a smiley face. Okay. I've had phone trouble the last 2 days and didn't mean to send that. It just happened as I was typing. Anywho, there's a anywho. Anywho. And then she starts again. Hi, this is Jana J. Minnesota. I was just catching up with the videos and getting your number in my phone from the 91418 video, so it must be the 800 number. I hope to be a part of a big group of video of yours again soon. We, back a couple of months ago, Shelley and I put together a Zoom.us program where we invited any of the Fenn searchers to join us. And I'm trying to remember, I think we had like 27, 30 people in that room that night. We had a great time. Everybody got time to introduce themselves and talk about where they're from, et cetera, et cetera. And we just went down the line. And I know Jana was one of the ones that really liked that idea and wants us to do it again. Let's see, soon maybe have all the people from Minnesota on the show. Yeah, we have Jana and Joel and Susan Heckenleibel. There's a lot of people from Minnesota. There seems to be a few of us here, and I'm curious if we are all thinking the same areas. Even though we aren't supposed to hunt in the winter, we can joke that we know how to move snow and live in negative temperatures. I participate in a couple of winter treasure hunts here. There is one annual hunt that I'm part of where thousands come out to hunt, crammed into 12 clues, 1 day or until found. I've met some wonderful people and have lifelong friends because of it. Well, anyways, thanks for doing videos in general. Stay awesome. Please let me know that you got this text. Jana, I got your text. So that was from Jay, Minnesota, one of our viewers and subscribers and one of the folks that makes up that Minnesotan community of searchers. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So this is, hang on. So this is a voicemail. Let's play out the voicemail.
Hey, Toby and Shelley, this is Scott again, Azure Blue. Truly, truly love your show. It is the best. I wanted to know about the pinyon trees and about Forrest making a mistake in saying that you would smell pinyon trees by the treasure. I'm in Florida, and I'm looking forward to coming out to New Mexico sometime next year and meeting both of you. And again, you guys are the very best, and I appreciate all that you do. Take care.
Well, that was very nice. So he followed up with a text message, and the text message says, thank you so much. Please remember that you are an incredible person, and there are so many that truly appreciate your dedication to the Fenn community. Wishing you find the treasure azure, which is very kind. So a couple of things. Number one, if you're coming from Florida to New Mexico and you actually want to smell pinon trees, come in the August time frame because that's when they're the most robust. That's also the time that we here in New Mexico go out picking pinon, as it is called, so that we can roast it over the winter. And that comment that Fenn made about smelling the pinon trees, he combined several environmental zones that technically were impossible to. You couldn't smell pinon trees and sage and potterus, et cetera, et cetera. And I think soon after he made that statement, he was questioned about that, and he retracted the part about the pinon trees. So we haven't incorporated into our solutions since then. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. We look forward to hearing from you when you're here in New Mexico, and we'll take you out so that you can smell the pinon trees. So I've got some text messages coming in. You guys can probably hear that, the little bell coming in. Let me address those in order. Let's see. This is from Anthony calling from Los Angeles, California. Just wanted to ask, what type of map should I get? I'm planning a trip soon. Thank you. Anthony, aside from the fact that you can get maps online, you can use the free ones like Google Earth, or you can go to OnX Maps and pay the $99 a year to get the more detailed maps. We rely on two types of maps. The first is the BLM generic maps, and they actually are in two levels of resolution. One is the big statewide map, and then the state is broken up into rectangles, and then we use the ones for the rectangle in which we are searching. The reason we do that is the BLM maps indicate the differences between land ownership, between private land, state land, national forest land, national park land, BLM land, tribal lands, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a good idea to get those maps for the area that you search in, and then make sure that you're searching in an area that is more likely to hold a treasure. And again, I'm going to express our opinion on this matter. We think it is most likely that the treasure is hidden either on BLM land or national forest land. And the reason we think that is it's the one that's most likely to make it easier to own the treasure. We think it is less likely that the treasure is hidden on tribal land or private land or national park land, because it makes it more difficult to own the treasure. Again, our opinion. We're not going to try and talk you out of whatever your opinion is. But that's where we start, the BLM maps, because the BLM maps are specifically designed to indicate property ownership, and they start at very high resolution and go down to progressively lower resolution. So those maps as well. As a matter of fact, I used to have the New Mexico BLM map pinned up behind me. And then the second type of map we use is the topographic map. And what we rely on for topographic, we rely on OnX Maps, but that's a $99 fee. You can get free high-resolution topographical maps from the Nat Geo. If you just enter, and I don't know the exact, perhaps somebody in the room can, one of our moderators can give you the link for the Nat. All you have to do is enter or search Google for Nat Geo quads, and then you go to the specific area, and each area is divided into 5 pages worth of PDF files, a PDF with 5 pages. And the first page is the large map for that area. This is all very detailed topographic. And then that area is divided into 4 segments, and the following 4 pages represent each one of those segments. In addition to that, it gives you some important information like declination and what the maps on either side of that are, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a good idea to use those, A, because they're free, B, because you're printing them out. I have a copy of the area of the one in the area in which we search, and you can go to REI Co-op and you can buy map printing paper, and it's a type of paper that's very durable. You can't actually tear it. It doesn't. It looks like normal paper. It has kind of a brown, a tan tint to it. But in addition to that, it's waterproof. So if you use waterproof inks in your printer, hang on. So if you use waterproof inks in your printer, you'll have a completely waterproof map. I put it in a plastic bag anyway. But those are the easiest to access maps. You do have to pay for the maps at the BLM office, but you should never have to pay more than $8 for a BLM map. The forest maps can be helpful, but they cover so much territory that that they're not detailed enough, in my humble opinion. The BLM maps get down to very specific segments, and then within those segments, you can go to the Nat Geo quads and get even more detail. So that's what we recommend in terms of maps. Next one. Hey, Toby, it's Illinois Ghost. What are your thoughts on the one clue everyone can think of but hasn't? So, Illinois Ghost, you must have been reading my mind, because our next show on Tuesday is entitled The 9 Clues That Aren't in the Poem. And I had a very different take. Now, Illinois Ghost, I'm going to remind all of us that was a question that Fenn had shared with, I think it was the Fenn treasure hunters, and they brought it up in one of their Tuesday or Saturday chats, and they talked about it. And to me, it seemed like there was a lot of confusion about exactly what Fenn was referring to. And honestly, I'm as confused as everybody else. But I wanted to point out that I think what he was referring to is a clue that exists, at least one clue that exists, that isn't in the poem and hasn't been announced in the sense that, where I don't think it's the 5,000 feet, 10,200 feet that he did on, Shelley will remind me of this. I think it was Good Morning America, but it could be one of those other morning shows. Shelley always remembers and I don't. So whatever isn't Good Morning America, that's what it was on. Anyway, I loved the question. And so when I saw the question, when I heard the question, I thought to myself, well, let me see, how would I address that? And so what I thought Fenn meant, what is a clue that seems to be out there and available that we haven't picked up on and taken advantage of? And so I went back through all my research, and I came up with 9 clues that aren't in the poem but fit this criteria that Illinois Ghost has mentioned in this thing. And let me read it again. It's what are your thoughts on the one clue everyone can think of but hasn't? And again, I'm going to refer you to one of Fenn Treasure Hunter shows where they did talk about that. But it stimulated some research for me, and all of that research is going to result in a show on Tuesday that and the topic of that show on Tuesday is the 9 clues that aren't in the poem, because I think there are at least, and maybe there are more, and perhaps you can add to the conversation on that day, I think there are 9 clues that aren't in the poem that if we take serious look at, he's given us an indication. And we have made videos on some of these in the past, but I'm going to bring them all together on that show, and I'm going to give you my impression of not just the one clue that Fenn says we haven't thought of, but at least, and I'll say at least, 9 clues that we haven't, I don't want to say that we haven't thought of. We've obviously thought of them because we've discussed them, but we haven't incorporated into our thinking. So we're going to talk about that on our Tuesday show. And of course, we'll follow on with a panel discussion on Wednesday night on the same topic. So for those of you that are in our panel group, you will be getting an invitation to that show on Wednesday to discuss a topic very similar to the one that Illinois Ghost Rick McDonald is suggesting to us here. Okay, we're loading up with questions. So this is Ben Downing again. So this is the second one. Hello, this is Ben Downing. How much information do you consider when crafting your solutions? Would you consider yourself a poem purist, poem and book purist, Fenn purist, or something else? I think I'm a something else. And the something else is the combination purist. I don't know how to describe this. So I don't think of myself as exclusively a poem purist. I have to give credence to some of the things that Fenn has written in the book. I don't think you can get away with just the poem. And again, these are my opinions. I'm not going to argue with anyone who is a poem purist. I would say, at a minimum, I'm a thrill of the chase book purist. I do rely on that. And that, for all intents and purposes, is my Bible. And then what I do is I spend time, and you're going to, again, see it on Tuesday, I spend time looking for idiosyncrasies in Fenn's conversations that he's had with other people. As you guys probably know, we did a YouTube video entitled Forrest Fenn died in December of 2010. And the implication was of that, and again, please don't, I hope no one takes offense that I think about Forrest Fenn's death in 2010. The point that I was trying to make in the program was, what if he had died in December of 2010? And as a result, we didn't have anything else. There was no Too Far to Walk. There was no Once Upon a While. There was no big map that sits behind me. There was none of that. There was no interviews. The only interview that would have been done by that time is the interview that he did with, what's her name, Mary Catherine something or other, in Santa Fe the day of the release of the book, et cetera, et cetera. So we wouldn't have any additional information. We'd have the book and we'd have the poem inside the book. And then we'd have whatever archival information had been collected about Forrest Fenn and the things that he accomplished in his life prior to that time. But we wouldn't have any additional information. So that's kind of the purist that I am, in the sense that my fundamental solution has to meet those criteria. And then my research consists of looking for the idiosyncrasies. I don't like to think of them as mistakes. There's simply idiosyncrasies in Fenn's conversations that might provide additional information. And they're very subtle. They're almost ethereal, right? It's hard to tell that he's actually said something that's important to us. But I don't put any credence in terms of our solution in Too Far to Walk. To me, Too Far to Walk is, as Michael Houle describes it, and I actually stole this from him. Michael Houle describes Too Far to Walk as the memoir that Fenn would have written had he not had to hide a treasure. And I agree with him on that. Once Upon a While, I think, was a kindness that he did for the people that had worked with him for as many years as they had. So I put no credence in anything that happened in any of the books, any of the materials, and that's what they are. So let me put it here. And I don't put any credence in any marketing materials that were produced after 2010. I do some research into some of the conversations we have, looking for those minuscule idiosyncrasies that might give me an insight into what and how Fenn thinks. So I would call myself a thrill of the chase purist, but excluded. I don't think I have opened either Once Upon a While or Too Far to Walk more than once, and that once was just to read them, to see if there was any additional insight into Fenn the man, how he thinks, versus actually looking for clues and hints in the poem. I certainly don't put any credence into the hundreds, what are there, 180, 190 scrapbooks, none of that. So I stick with the book and the poem. And then a couple of other little, you're actually going to see on Tuesday, you're going to see the other 9 things that I've considered that I incorporate into our solutions. Okay, thanks for that question. That was a great question, Ben. Thank you. This is from the lovely Heather Dawn. It's a voicemail. So let's see what Heather Dawn has to say. Heather Dawn, which disguise are you in tonight? Are you Heather Dawn, or I can't see you because it's just scrolling by. Are you Heather Dawn or Cherokee Buffalo? So did I actually turn myself back on? Okay, here we go. So let's see what Heather Dawn has to say.
Hi, it's Heather Dawn, Hattrick Brown, White Buffalo Woman 75, still alive. And I was calling because I wanted to explain how I got involved in 2016 in the chase. And I already said what, and now I want to say how. And so I was wondering if I could zoom in. I don't know how to zoom in, but maybe you guys could help me, because I don't have a lot of space left on my phone, all the pictures I've taken from all my boots on the ground. Anyways, in Wyoming. Thank you. Have a nice day. Blessings. Bye.
You too. Okay. Heather, the zooming in, of course, is all associated with the panels that we do, and you're welcome to join the panels by watching them. We have, over the last several months, developed a group of people who we invite back to our panels because they're willing to take the panel format and willing to answer the questions that I ask in the panel format. It's not our panels are never open. I don't want to say never, but our panels are more rigorous, I guess. We have a very specific topic that we discuss in a very specific way. And so there's no technically open Zoom panel things. But if you do call in to the number that you left this voicemail at, I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I know why Heather Dawn did that. I forgot to turn off the Do Not Disturb. Okay, so for those of you who have been calling and getting voicemail, the Do Not Disturb is off. Call me and we'll get you on the air. Sorry, I apologize for that. I have a list with all this new technology. I literally have a checklist that I have to go through every time in order to make sure all of this stuff works. And it's a little bit more difficult when I'm alone. It's easier when Shelley is here, coaching me basically. But I missed that part because I wanted to hold the Do Not Disturb until we finished reading the stuff that we were getting in. So if you've been trying to call in and going straight to voicemail, I apologize. My fault. Call in. We'll get you on the air. Including you, Heather Dawn. So this is from Steve, and he's got two messages, so let me read them in order. Steve from Houston, if you don't have, and this is a quote, so apparently this is something that Fenn has said. I'm going to assume I can't check this from where I'm at, so maybe anybody in the room who's heard this. It looks good to me. Quote, if you don't have the first clue nailed down, stay home and play canasta. Is this, unquote, is this a clue to where to find Warm Water's halt? He says he wants us to get out. And then he continues, in the mountains, not stay home. Contradicts everything he says, in my humble opinion. Is the word nail a clue? Love your format. Thanks. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. We mentioned it in this week's programming. And we mentioned it in the Warm Waters, the Warm Waters roundtable response that I did. What's really funny, I should tell you guys. I don't know whether you saw my response, my response to the first roundtable that had been elicited by Sean Dodson over at the Flip Side. But the first time I did that, it was 17 minutes and 58 seconds long. So I actually, and when I made it, it was on the day after he announced it. So it sat there for a couple of days, and I thought to myself, I cannot put up a video that's 17 minutes and 58 seconds long because it was very dense in terms of content. And so I showed it to Shelley, and she said no. She tried to console me. And she said, no, it has a lot of good information. Don't feel bad about it. It's not a hard constraint, but I really did feel bad about it. So literally, I was up the morning before taking out slides and reducing it. And I know you guys, there were a couple of comments about, Toby can't possibly talk just for 5 minutes. But I did get it down to the 7 minutes and 58 seconds. And there was a lot of references, including the one that Steve just cited, that would have been in that presentation had I left it the full 17 minutes and 58 seconds long. So you should be grateful that I didn't torture you with that. So, guys, I just got a phone call. I should mention that I'm not going to answer a phone line, a telephone number if I can't see the phone number. That includes what I just got, which was a restricted call or a private number or a blocked number. So do us both a favor and let me see that phone number so that I can answer your call because I'd love to have the conversation. So anyway, let me get back to Steve's question. He has on more than one occasion referred to the fact that the first clue is begin at where Warm Waters halt. B, that you can't get more than the first two clues, according to the little girl in India. From the armchair research. And C, that if you don't have that, don't waste your time. And I think canasta, I don't think the canasta reference is necessarily a clue. I think it's that was a game that was played by people, is a very popular card game played by people in his generation. So I think he has a memory of that. As a matter of fact, for years and years, I used to say that when I retire, you're just not going to find me sitting around a table with a bunch of old guys playing canasta. And I think it's some reference to the fact that apparently I've never actually played canasta, but I think it's a reference to the fact that canasta has no I don't know whether it's like bridge where it's very competitive, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe somebody can tell me if canasta is actually a cool game to play. In the military, we played hearts and spades. So maybe that's a reference to his military time, because you do play a lot of cards when you're in the military. But I don't think the canasta is a hint. I don't think the nail is a hint. I think he's just reinforcing that if you don't have that kind of information, that if you don't have information that goes, if you've got the information that indicates where your warm water's halt, go check it out. But if you don't have that, if you're just guessing at it, stay home and play canasta or any other game that you think would be appropriate for you, including, I'm sure, games on your little texting machines. Hold on just a sec. I made the mistake of drinking a cup of coffee before I started this program, and I use a sweetener, and the sweetener always, as Shelley will probably tell you. Okay, so our restricted number did leave us a voicemail, so I'm going to open this cautiously.
Hey, it's that guy, Jace. Hey, listen, I was just thinking about when you were talking about maps and everything. Have you ever considered the possibility or the likelihood that there is a particular kind of map? I mean, I know you have a lot of interest in maps, and obviously you've seen dozens and dozens of styles following those areas. But I was just wondering if there was like a particular style of map that you think might have either a clue or an answer that would be relevant to the chase. Thanks. Have a good night.
So for those of you that don't recognize that name, that voicemail message was left by the restricted number, and apparently my own son has a restricted number. So that was my son, Jason, and he asked a good question. When one of the things that if you that if you do have the book and you are looking at it, one of the first things that you'll notice is that in chapter 23, Gold and More, where he talks about what he did and includes the poem, there is a map on the page opposite the poem page, and it is an older map of New Mexico. Now, there has been debate, including me, about which of the maps that it is. I thought at first it was the 1895 map of New Mexico. Other people have said no, that it was either earlier or later, but the style of the map that was printed was for that period in time, the late 1800s. So that I acquired that map, and the only benefit it had to it is it was very clear about what the Rocky Mountains were, so and where the mountains north of Santa Fe were. And we found out later, and one of the interesting things about that map is you look at it, and the Rio Grande is not in the Rocky Mountains, something that he said in later years after the death of one of the searchers that had died in the Rio Grande. So I do look for other maps, and I think it's very possible because of his reference. All you need is the book, the poem, and a really good map. He's also said that more than once. And again, these are all paraphrased. If somebody's doing Fenn quote checking tonight and reporting to Fenn, I'm not going to claim any of these to be quotes. I'm going to call them like hand grenades. They're close counts in Fenn quotes and hand grenades. I'm paraphrasing them, but he said you need the poem, the book, and a good map, but he's never quite said how he defines a good map. And the good map could very well be, a Nat Geo Quad, for example. It could be a map that he discovered that was readily accessible on the internet, that he knew was readily accessible, and could have referred to that as a good map. I do believe, in response to my son's question, I do believe that that a good map is required, and I think the quote good unquote map has more than some indications of some of the areas that we're looking at, but it has to do it at a level of detail and a level of resolution that you're not going to find on Google Earth. And I don't think he expects that you're, engaging one of the satellite photo companies to pay the prices they charge for the higher resolution maps. So I think maps are important. Maps with me, if nothing else, provide mental stimulation. So when you're looking at a map of the area, say south and west of Cody, Wyoming, and you see the names of some of those mountaintops, you can very easily come to the conclusion that those mountains are referred to in the poem. If you go to the area north and west of Gardner, Montana, for example, you can look at some of those mountain ranges and the names that are given those mountains. So let me see who we've got here. So we've got an incoming call. Caller, don't forget to turn down the audio on your computer so that we don't get a feedback. Oh, it's the beautiful Heather Dawn. Heather Dawn, what's your question tonight? Heather Dawn, are you with me? Heather Dawn isn't with me. I don't know why Heather Dawn is not with me. Okay, Heather Dawn, I'm going to hang up and we'll try this. You try it again, okay? So let me go back. And did I finish Steve's question? Maps are important. Oh, I'm sorry, I was on Jason's question. Maps are important, and I think it's going to take, I think the real find will be when we find the map that isn't published by the BLM or Nat Geo, but the map that Fenn used, you know, to carry with him on the day that he documented the fact that he had hidden the treasure in a special place. So I do believe that map is important because it comes up too often. The map is important because it comes up way often in this conversation. So we got a voicemail again from Justin in Texas. So I got a voicemail and then a text. So let me do let me see which one goes first. Yeah, so let me do the voicemail first and then we'll read the text, okay? Here we go.
Hey, Toby, this is Justin from Texas, a.k.a. Minotaur Moreno. I was watching your book club yesterday for Gold and More, and I saw that you didn't think that Big Ball of String meant anything, and that kind of surprised me. If you open the book, it says, unlock the clues that are scattered among these pages, and you can go home with a bronze chest so full of gold and precious jewelry that it's almost too heavy for one person to carry.
Uh-oh. So we lost him at that. So Minotaur, that is true. We don't put a lot of credence in the ball. But again, I'm going to qualify everything I say with these are our opinions. And included in that qualification is we respect everyone else's opinion. So if for example, if you believe that the big ball of string is connected to the finding of the treasure, and you know what else I have to do? I have to turn down the volume on this. So we did get a call. Oh, here's Heather Dawn again. Heather Dawn, can you hear me? Heather Dawn, I can't hear you. So I don't know what you've done to your volume, but I can't hear you, sweetie. No background noise, no nothing. So, and my volume is up and correct. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I'm pretty loud. So let's see if you just, what I'm going to do is if you call again, I'm going to send it to voicemail and just leave me the voicemail, and I'll get to the voicemail because I can't hear you and neither can the audience. Okay. Okay. So so that was from Justin, and I do want to address what he suggested, that I didn't have an interest in the ball of string, or that the ball of string, he was surprised to hear that the ball of string wasn't a part of our solution. That is true. So I'm going to send Heather Dawn to voicemail. So that is true. Hang on. I need to turn down my ringer as well. Just give me a second here. Okay. So I did see, so let me, Shelley says that Minotaur did leave a text as well. So let me look at the text. So the text says, this is Justin from Texas, a.k.a. Minotaur. Apologies, but I had to hang up halfway through my voicemail. What I wanted to say was that it surprised me that you didn't think the ball of string was important to yesterday's book club. In the dust jacket of the book, it states, unlock the clues that are scattered among these pages, and you can go home with a bronze chest full of gold. The origin of the word clue comes from ball of thread. Coincidence? Fenn talks about solving the clues at the beginning of the book and a ball of string in gold and more. Yes, he does. And I think that's a good comparison. And I don't want you to think I'm discounting anyone else's perceptions of this. We try to cover as much territory as we can with the book. In addition to that, the book club is really about an analysis of Fenn's writing style, so we don't often get into what are clues and what are hints in the book unless it comes up in the post-analysis conversation. So I don't want you to think that we're intentionally discounting that. We simply, the book club is meant for a very specific reason, to do the analysis of what Fenn is thinking and not necessarily to refer to the clues or the hints. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't discount or disrespect any other person's, any other searcher's perception of what might be clues and what might be hints. I can only state what I think mine are and then hope that engages us in some kind of conversation. So please don't take offense. It's Christy from the Thor Forum. Let's see if I can hear Christy. Christy, can you hear me? Oh, why can't I hear anybody? Why can't I hear anybody? Christy. So that's good. That's good. Christy, can you hear me? Can I hear you? Why can't I hear Christy? So volume is up. My caller is not muted. Those are connected. So just give me a second here while I work this out. Those are all down. Those are up. Okay. Christy, talk to me. I'm just going to see if there's a reverb sound. Christy? Oh, well, that's disappointing. So I haven't changed my setup here. Christy, can you hear me? No? So, guys, I don't know why I'm not hearing anybody's voice. So, I don't know what to say. All right, Christy, if you can hear me, I'm going to hang up. I can't hear you. Let me look at my volume side of the thing. So, no, volume is up. Doggone it. How can we have a call-in show if I don't have volume? If I forget to use the do not disturb and do the call-in. Hang on let me check one other thing. So, Christy, I'm going to hang up. Please don't take it personally. I've got to figure out what the problem is here. So just give me a second. So, man, ringer is on. Ringer is on. When did I use this last? I think we just used it yesterday, right? We used it on our show yesterday. I didn't make any changes. Caller is up. I'm getting the voicemails. So I'm getting voicemails. They come from the same audio, so it's connected to the Bluetooth. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't hear you. That's real disappointing to me. Because it shouldn't be, the setup works in the sense that I can play the voicemails, and I know you guys can hear the voicemails, right? You are hearing the voicemails, correct? So let me go back to what I'm getting in terms of text messages. So this is Julia from Chicago. Hi, Toby. How many times in the Thrill of the Chase does Forrest Fenn mention stars, space, or make astronomical references? So Lori could hear me. You mean K-Pro? So why can't I hear K-Pro? I can see K-Pro. I can't hear her. All All right. So hold on. I'm going to try and play this voicemail to see if that was Christy. Just give me a second. So, hang on. Let me go back to this. Text that I received from Julia in Chicago. How many times in the Thrill of the Chase book does Forrest Fenn mention stars, space, or make astronomical references? Perhaps this is an answer to your metaphysical question. What are your thoughts and the thoughts of other viewers? So, let's take the thoughts of other viewers. Please put in the chat room on behalf of Julia what you think. How many references to stars, space, or other astronomical references, and see what you think about that. I'll have to do you the favor, Julia, of actually looking in my searchable copy of the book, and it's an interesting. I hadn't researched that area before, but I've just made a note to do that, and I will research that area so that the next time we have one of these conversations, we'll have some information for you. So, Christy, I see you in the chat room. I'm sorry, I don't know what I have changed here so that I can't hear you, nor can I see you. Actually, I can't see the levels go up when you guys are talking. So, let me. Yeah, I'll have to work on that. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking forward to the conversations. So this question is from Tom in Virginia. Can the blaze in full or in part be determined from the poem, shape, color, orientation, etc.? I think that's one of the big questions that all of us have about all the objects that have the potential to be associated with the clues in the poem. We're always asking ourselves, did he give us a hint in the poem as to what the construction of the blaze is? My opinion is that it's not in the poem, but I think there are two things that you can find in the book. And the first thing that I believe you can find in the book is the starting point, the point at which you look for beginning where warm waters halt, where warm waters halt. And I feel like he has to give you a clue as to where to start all of that. And then I think the second thing that you will find in the book is some reference to the construction, how the blaze, what you can expect the blaze to be. We have our opinions on the matter, but I'm not going to express them for two reasons. One, they're part of our solution, and two, we're no more right than anybody else. So the short answer to your question, Tom, in Virginia, is that we don't think those references are in the poem. We do think those references are in the book. Okay, we got another call. It looks like Davio's number, so let me see. I'm hoping... Oh, I know what it is. Davio. Is that you, brother?
No.
Oh, it's not. Well, hey, don't feel bad. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to offend you. But the good news is that I've now got the voice into I realized what I was doing wrong. So I've got the voice into the switcher so our audience can hear us. So what's your first name and where are you calling from?
What?
What's your first name and where are you calling from?
My name's John. I'm calling from California.
John, what's your question?
I was just wondering, like, what is the stream about? I was just kind of wondering.
Oh, you mean our live stream? Where are you watching from? Which channel, which platform are you watching from?
Oh, I'm watching from Gypsy Kiss on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. Our channel is about the search for the Forrest Fenn treasure. And so all our live streams and all our pre-recorded videos deal, I think there's over 300 of them, deal with searching for the treasure that the art dealer and entrepreneur Forrest Fenn hid somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe back in 2010. So that's what our stream is about. And what you're hearing tonight is a show that we've only done for 2 weeks now. We call it the Forrest Fenn Friday Fennbaree, where people can call in and ask their questions or send text messages and get their questions answered. And of course, they're getting their questions answered by me, and I'm just another searcher. I just have lots of opinions on the matter, and they're willing to listen to and argue with my opinion. So that's what the stream is about. How do you find it so far?
Well, I've been finding it pretty good. I was just kind of weirded out by the whole, not knowing when anything's happening.
Yeah.
But I get it now. Yeah, no.
Oh, well,
Do
good.
you actually believe in the Forrest Fenn?
Yeah,
Do you believe in it?
Yeah, that's one of the what ifs that you have to get over. So there's a lot of what ifs that one has to deal with when you're searching for a treasure that has this, at least worth $1 million. And you, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me refer to his book, The Thrill of the Chase, where he describes the treasure. It's quite the thing, and there is more evidence in favor of the treasure existing than there is evidence for it being a hoax. And some of the evidence for it is that he's simply he's not that kind of man. If you believe that, if you've met him, you find out he's just not that kind of person. Secondly, he had.
Have you met him?
Oh yeah, more than once actually. We've helped him on several occasions. So he's still living. He turned 88 here in August. And Christy, I see that you're calling. Just wait until I finish this call. So he turned 88 in August. He's still living. He's still very active. He participated in a raffle drawing for a searcher just a couple of weeks ago. And the treasure, as far as we know, as of this conversation, is still out there waiting to be found. So you have to do some research to kind of figure out where you think it is. But we know some of us believe it's in New Mexico, some of us in Colorado, some of us in Wyoming and Montana, because back in 2013 he suggested that it was in the Rocky Mountains. So that's a lot of territory to cover. There are approximately, by his count, 350,000 people researching and looking for the treasure. And if you go back to some of our videos on our channel, you'll see conversations with treasure hunters from all over the world looking for this Fenn treasure.
How do you know someone hasn't already just found it and not said anything?
We don't. There is no absolutes. And again, you're talking about the what ifs. We don't know that. We assume that the person who has found it would respect Fenn's wishes, and his wishes are that you at least let people know that it's been found. And we think they would respect the other members of the community by saying, look, don't spend any more time, effort, or money looking for this treasure. The treasure is in my possession. But we don't know that. We don't know. So let me go back to your first question. We don't absolutely know that it isn't a hoax. We don't absolutely know that that someone hasn't already recovered the treasure. What I can tell you is that there is no evidence that either one of those conditions exist. And after that, it's like religion. You got to have faith, brother.
Okay, but just real quick, is it hidden behind? This is gonna sound weird, but behind obstacles where you'd have to purposely find it. What if someone just accidentally finds it and had no idea this Forrest Fenn thing?
Yeah. So Fenn has said, so let me address that. Fenn has said that the treasure will not be accidentally stumbled upon. Now, you haven't watched all the show and you haven't, participated in all the activities that have taken place since 2010. But there's a book. It's called Thrill of the Chase. It's called Thrill of the Chase. And in chapter 23 of that book, he describes the treasure. There's photographs of the treasure that he hid. And there's a poem. And the poem consists of 6 4-line stanzas. And he has told us that there are 9 clues in that poem that, if followed precisely, will lead you directly to the treasure. Now, I will tell you that lots of people have spent lots of time trying to figure out what each of those clues means. And none of us, those 350,000 that I mentioned earlier, have gotten to the point where we have that treasure in our possession. So that's part of the fun. What many people believe is that part of what he was trying to accomplish here was to get young people out into nature looking for this treasure, because you have to get boots on the ground. You are not going to find it from the seat of your desktop, near your desktop computer. You actually have to have boots on the ground.
What's this book called again?
The book, our book club. So we have a number of shows every week, right? The Gypsy Kiss is our channel. And one of the shows that we have is, over the past 23 weeks, or 23 programs. On Thursdays, we do a live book club where we cover each one of the chapters. So you could literally go back to book club chapter 1, and you could go through all the material that we presented there, and we give you a good idea of what's in each chapter. My partner, Shelley Carney, who's a relationship coach, analyzes Fenn's writing in the chapter, and we end up talking about what it means in the grand scheme of things. But it gives you a good indication of what's in the book. The book, you can order the book from the Collected Works bookstore in Santa Fe. It costs $35 plus shipping, and Fenn claims that everything that you need to know to find the treasure is in that book. And as I said, including the poem, the key thing is in the poem.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
That pretty much answers all my questions. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling, and stick with the channel. Subscribe to the channel. We publish at least 4 programs a week on the topic. And if you just look at the channel, we also have a blog. Let me make one other recommendation if you're new to the search. We have a blog called gypsyskiss.com. And if you go to gypsyskiss.com, the first sticky post on the treasure there is instructions on what a new searcher should do in terms of research to get them kick-started into this plan. Hey, listen, I'm going to take another call, okay?
All right.
Thanks for calling.
All right. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Oh, let's see if we can get her. Christy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Yay, us.
Yay! It worked. The gremlins are gone.
You know what? It's not the gremlins. The gremlin is named Toby. All the problems that have been caused tonight were because Toby the gremlin was making messes. So do me a favor and turn down your audio.
Yeah, I'm moving rooms. I've called a couple times, but you had such intriguing callers. I wanted to wait before I moved rooms to see if I was getting sent a voicemail.
It was fun to hear from that last caller who literally somehow manages to find our channel, is looking at it and going like, "What the hell is going on here?" So that was a fun call.
Yeah, what is TTOTC? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of what he is.
I'm honoring.
And actually, the way he said it, his first sentence was like, I just tuned into this. What's going on here? Thinking that it's a bunch of crazy old people planning to overtake the government, So that was a fun call. I really enjoyed that call. I haven't had one of those conversations in a long time.
You did great.
So tell me about your plans for your show. When is the launch?
The launch is Monday at 7 o'clock your time, 9 o'clock East Coast.
Okay.
We are going to have Mike Calazar, in case you know Calazar.
I do indeed.
Is going to co-host with me. He's helping me technology-wise on the back end. He's been wonderful. He's worked with me almost every day to get me through all the things. And thank you for your how to keep the trolls managed.
Control the trolls, baby.
Video,
Control the trolls.
Unfortunately, have had to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're going to have at least a couple of people on every week. And so we already have 2 lined up. Oh, do you want me to announce it here, who they are? Because it's big news.
I know you have been, you've asked Mike to be very secretive about making those kinds of announcements. If you're comfortable, of course, that Mike would be okay with you making the announcement. Hang on. I've got to reach down and get a power cable here. All right. So if you're comfortable that Mike will not mind you telling us who your first 2 guests are on Monday, I'd love to hear them, and I'm sure the folks in the chat room would love to hear it as well.
Mike is so easygoing, and I'm so not. So I just thank him for dealing with me. So I will say, I'm going to call it Artist Week. That I'm sure everybody saw Copper Dan and his wonderful art. He is going to be the first person. He has some very interesting takes on the search and his search process. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name. It's Jason Yonai. Jonas. Yes. And so he is going to be our second guest of how to deal with difficult search partners. No, I'm kidding.
People that are throwing him in the real trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, so they are going to be our two search partners, or our guests for the show, and we are going to talk about, I'll leave that for the teaser. We're going to do a teaser either late tonight or tomorrow, but that's going to be our panel. We're going to hold it to 4 for the first couple of weeks, but here's the other piece that I'm really excited about. Once a month, we're kicking all the boys out, and we're going to do a women searcher-only panel.
Oh.
And there's probably about 10 women that have come forward to say, search women, let's unite, and let's talk about how the search is a little different for us. Either you have a search partner who's a man, or you search on your own, or you have a search partner that's a woman, and we're going to talk kind of all about the women's issues once a month or once every, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And so that won't be the first week, but I'm excited this many women have reached out and said, let's do a panel just for the women. So we haven't decided whether we're going to kick Mike out or if he's just going to moderate or what he's going to do, but it will be super fun.
You and I have had conversations about that kind of panel in the past, and I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And if it was my panel, I would kick all the males out and let it be a female run. You certainly have the skills to do it, to organize it, pull it together, to moderate it. And I'm always looking forward to, the conversations that we do hear from the softer side. So, because I know they have opinions as well, and I feel like, as the father to 4 daughters, that they have every right to express them. So I look forward to those conversations. You to the conversations.
Yeah, and I love the softer side. I check in there every week, and I know it's more geared a little bit towards the men council, but I love it. I just love to watch it, and more searchers need to go there and just learn about life.
Yeah, Shelley is very good. Sherry, that's going to get me a punch. Shelley is very good at her counseling. She knows what she's talking about, and I think I provide her a great. I'm not going to use the phrase punching bag, but I provide for her somebody who has had enough issues in his life that I make a good counseling subject, because Lord knows I can use it. So it's a lot of fun for us. But we're looking forward to it. Thank you for sharing that. I can tell you that Jason Guy makes for a great subject. A great interview. He's bright, he's articulate, he's funny, and so congratulations on that pick. I think he's a great one. By the way, Mike.
And he's told us he's going to give us all of his secrets from the people that he
from all the work that we've done.
I don't know if he told you that yet.
Yeah. Well, if he starts if he starts with a Rio Chama, don't believe any of it. So. And I guess I'll tell folks also, since we're, you know what, I don't have permission to do this, so I shouldn't say anything. We're looking forward to seeing you and Mike and Copper Dan and Jason Eunice on the show Monday night. That's a great panel. Have you guys got a specific topic you're going to be discussing, or are you going to keep it loosey-goosey?
No, it's going to be a specific topic, and we may or may not have Fenn words, but I will say that's the piece that Mike and I are preparing a teaser right now to talk about the topic and potential other things. And since I have not talked to him tonight or told him I'm calling, I would like to defer that until our little teaser that will come out in just a little bit.
Well, good. I look forward to the conversation. You've got a great panel. You've got a couple of great partners in your moderators, and you and Mike, and I think it'll be a very dynamic program, and I'm looking forward to seeing it and contributing to it in the form of chat. So, I'll be in the chat room.
Thank you so much, and I do want to give a shout out to Jimmy Fast. He's going to be moderating the room because he does such a great job for you guys. You guys have shared him, and he's wonderful. So, thank you, Jimmy, Mr. Fast.
Mr. Fast. I'm going to have to start paying him. He's doing enough of this policing on the various channels that he should get some kind of payment for all this. He does such a great job in our chat room. So, I'm grateful that he's decided to help you with your program as well.
Yes. Well, thank you.
My pleasure. Have a good evening, young lady.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so problem number 2. who resolved. It has nothing to do with gremlins unless the gremlin is named the Tobster gremlin. Okay, I have got a text from... Okay, so I love these messages. This sounds like one of the forum messages. I have an opinion of the first clue, where warm waters halt. I haven't seen it anywhere. It's just my opinion. So, yeah, we hear a lot of that. If you really want to help the community, you have to expand upon that text and make sure that you tell them what your opinion is so that they can debate it with you and so that you can learn as a result of that debate. It's very Socratic. The conversation is Socratic. Let's see. Hello, this is Ben Downing again. How much information do you consider when crafting? Oh, I think I answered that question already. So let's go back. Oh, this is our 410 again. So, Toby, the first clue where Walmart, so he's following up, he or she is following up on that commentary. So, Toby, the first clue where warm waters halt. Has anyone figured out the first clue? Some people have come close to the treasure because they have started from where warm waters halt, or they just skipped through the very first clues and got close to the treasure by luck. Okay, I got to have a question in there because now this is starting to sound, your text messages are starting to sound like what we see in the forums where somebody expresses some thought but doesn't follow up with an opinion and then a request for conversation on their opinion. So let's see what else we got. This is from Rick McDonald, Illinois Go. Second question. Hey, Toby, it's, let's see. Okay, second one. Hey, Toby, it's Rick again. What would you like to hear discussed on the roundtable? Wow, that's a good question. What would I like to hear discussed on the roundtable? I know that's a conversation on Thor. There is a thread on Thor that asks that question. If I had a choice of what I would want to make a video about, knowing that it addresses what question has come up on the roundtable. Wow. I think what we should talk, what I'd like to talk about is considering the fact that many of us had plans that this treasure was going to be found this summer, and summer ends tomorrow at 7:54 p.m. in the Mountain time zone. What I would like to know is how are you going to invest your time in improving the quality and the integrity of your solution over the winter months? That's what I'd like to make a video of, because I think that's the kind of video to me that another person can watch and say, that's good. That's a good approach. That's a good way to spend my time. I can absorb some of that into my research. So that's an answer to your question, Rick. I think a good topic would be how are you going to invest your time over the winter refining and improving the quality and integrity of your search solution. Okay, let's see. This is from our 402 friend. And remember, guys, it's helpful if you just leave me your name and where you're texting from. Hey, Toby, just wanted your opinion on something. Forrest has stated that no ciphers are needed when he was saying people are overcooking my poem, etc. But then on an interview, he stated that Andrew Briggs had a lot of it figured out using the Jefferson cipher. Just want to hear your thoughts. It's 11B. Hey, brother. If I recall that interview, you have to be very cautious with how Fenn says things. And in that particular interview, he never gave any indication that what the gentleman, Andrew Briggs, had gotten him closer to the treasure. He simply indicated that someone had created a decipher tool that enabled them to decipher the clues to come up with some resolution, and that he had a resolution. Fenn never said that the approach was correct, that the resolution was correct. He's very cautious. You have to go back and read it very carefully, because it's like him saying, Toby has got this whole warm waters thing figured out, and according to me, I do have it figured out. According to Andrew Briggs, he has his cipher figured out from the poem, but neither Andrew Briggs nor I have the treasure. So I think and condescending is probably not a polite word to use. But I think what Fenn is doing is answering the question so the interviewer, the person asking the question, gets an answer. But if you pay attention to it, you realize it's not much of an answer. It's like that. The most obvious one that I recall is when somebody asked him when he identified the blaze, was it pointing north, east, west, or north, south, east, or west? And he said, and he thought about it for a minute, raised his, looked up in the upper right-hand corner, and he said, I don't think it was pointing in any of those directions. And so everybody concluded, well, if it's not pointing in any of those directions, maybe it's pointing up and it's pointing down. There are 360 directions on the compass. He said it wasn't pointing in 4 of those 360. That leaves 356 other options. And so the conversation about the ciphers was very much like that. It sounded like he's going like, yeah, ciphers are a good thing. And in reality, he's just saying, yeah, the guy did ciphers and he's come up with a conclusion. And if there had been a sentence that followed that, and it would have been, and it ain't going to get him any closer to the chest than Toby and warm water's halt. So that's what I think about that. Okay, so let's see what we got here. That was Christy's call. Oh, bless her heart, she called 4 times tonight. So here is Anonymous in New Mexico. So first question, there's 2 texts here, so I'm going to read both texts. This is from Anonymous, which is not a name, by the way. Anonymous doesn't count as a name. I'd like to see your name and where you're from, but I'll forgive you this time. Do you think Fenn put a strong emphasis on tea because the treasure is near wild tea somewhere in the Rocky Mountains? I think the only place he put emphasis on it was in Tea with Olga. And if you use that as a model, you could go to almost any chapter in the book and see that there's an emphasis on something. So I don't think it's any more likely than the emphasis that he put on other topical areas in any other chapter in the book. It's from Ollie in New Mexico. Do you think Fenn, so this is the same person, I apologize for teasing you about the Anonymous. It's from Ollie in New Mexico. Do you think Fenn puts a strong emphasis on tea? Oh, okay, so it's the same question. He just corrected it with his name. So no, I don't think there's any more emphasis on tea than there is on any other topic covered in any of the other, or highlighted in any of the other chapters. Hi, it's from Susan Heckenliable in Minnesota. Hi, Toby. Susie here. Please don't use my, sorry, Susie. Please don't use my last name, which is what I just did. I know it is super fun to say, but I'm a rare bird indeed. Sitting duck, actually not mad, just rare. So I apologize for having made that mistake yet again, because I didn't know any better. But I promise not to do it in the future, okay? So hopefully no one will watch this program and realize that I've done that again. Okay, text. Let's see. There's 3 of them. Hello, this is Ben. Ben's busy tonight. Hello, this is Ben Downing. How much information? Okay, we answered that. Yes, we are hearing the voicemails. Okay. Dana. And how do you interpret the quote, look at the poem as if it were a map, because it is? I don't think he leaves any room for interpretation in that sentence. Look at the poem because as if it's a map, because it is. And I think what you have to wrap your head around in backwards bicycle style is what he means when he says it's a map, because to most of us it looks like a poem, and the first reaction to it being a poem is that it must contain 9 riddles, each of one represents a clue. It's hard to look at that poem and imagine that it's a map, but realistically speaking, until we see it as a map, then we're probably not going to make any headway. I've never had a conversation with anyone, to the best of my knowledge. This is absolute. I've never had a conversation with anyone who, in that conversation, convinced me that they saw how the poem was the map. Generally speaking, when I have a conversation about the poem with someone, they see it the same way I do. 6 stanzas, 4 lines, 9 clues, 9 sentences, etc., etc. It doesn't go beyond the construction of the English language in text and then further into a poem. So I just until we cross that bridge of somehow manufacturing the either the intelligence or the imagination to look at it like a map, as he indicates here, I think that's one of those bridges that has yet to be crossed. So maybe we can do a show on that. I just got a text message from Susie, and it says LOL, of course, because I started the text asking me not to mention her name by mentioning her name. So Susie, I apologize. I owe you a hug. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is from our 410 area code friend. And he says, Toby, he or she says, Toby, on the warm waters halt, I have a solution that where warm waters halt will be where they are frozen. Frozen waters, glacier. Mike from Maryland. Hey, Mike, thanks for sending that in. As we say to other people's approach to this, anything is possible, and yours is just as possible and even probable as much as anyone else's is. And what you have to do is get boots on the ground and prove it out to yourself. There are a lot of people, and I think including Mike Cowling, who consider the possibility of the Glacier National Park up north may have something to do with all of this. Again, since we're not researching that area, we haven't gotten that far into the research. Okay, Ali. I said Ali, and it's Ali. So I don't know what you're telling me now. Are you male or female, Ali? I'm assuming that since you corrected me, Ali, you're a male, but I don't know. Help me out here. I'm even more confused than ever. Susan, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Okay, that was so RF Hecky from Tornado area in Minnesota. No damage to my property, but neighbors not as lucky. My question is, what do you think Forrest Fenn? What do you think of Forrest Fenn leaving map coordinates in the book? I think it is easy to interpret them as a distraction. That's what I think. I think that Forrest Fenn, considering how much effort he put into a poem that he claims is a map, is not going to give us specific coordinates in the book that replaces the map that's in the poem. So I think it's a distraction. My humble opinion, remember. Okay, so Allison. So that's obviously a female name. Allison, I apologize. It's hard for me to look at a text without the information that I ask and try to figure out who's what. So Allison, Allie in New Mexico is a female, and we're happy to hear that because we love to have, if we look at our statistics, about 25% of our viewers are female viewers. The others, of course, are males or androgynous, I guess. I don't know. But here's what we found out that just happened yesterday. So we see the statistics of the interested age groups, the people that look at our videos in terms of age group. And since we started, the primary age group was in the 35 to 44. It was primary. And then the secondary one was the 45 to 55. In the past 3 weeks or so, I think, from the influence of the BuzzFeed video, it's dropped. So most of our viewers, the plurality of our viewers, come in the 25 to 35 age group, which I think is cool because that implies to me that we have a whole new generation of searchers getting interested in these things. So, okay. Let me go back. I was getting some text. So there are some texts here that I'm getting, but I don't know where they're appearing. Okay, here's another one from Ben Downing. Ben Downing again. If beginning at where warm waters halt is the first clue, what is the purpose of the first stanza? In our opinion, Ben, the first stanza, the fifth stanza, and the sixth stanza are effectively the legal document that establish his ownership of the treasure that he hid, and then further, it establishes the transfer of title to you. That if you look at those three stanzas, they have more legal talk in them than they do anything. Now, it has also been theorized that the first stanza is some indication of where to begin it, where to find the begin it at Warm Waters Halt. We don't see it that way. We think it's just the legal part of the document, which he had to incorporate so that the finder could. It's all about the transfer of ownership. So the first stanza tells us he owned the treasure and that he was perfectly sane when he hid it, and then the fifth and sixth stanzas indicate that the person who went looking for the treasure and found it. Okay, another call coming in. Let me make sure I've got that right. Hey, caller, this is a Gypsy's Kiss. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your question?
Hey, Toby, this is Twin Jim calling from Colorado. How are you?
Hi, Twin Jim. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Hope you're doing well.
Oh, I are.
Great show, by the by.
Do I look like I'm having a good time?
You look like you're just partying like a rock star.
That's how I feel. Thank you. So what's going on in Colorado?
Hey, so quick question.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have a question, and it's more of a statement to get some reactions to see if I've lost my mind, which is totally possible. Forrest mentioned that he wished he had another treasure to hide in the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to understand that for a long time, and I've come to the conclusion that the reason is that there is a Roan mountain in the Appalachians, and there is a Roan plateau in Colorado.
Oh, interesting.
Thought?
Okay, so let me take it from your perspective. If I was in Colorado and I was aware of that comparison, I would want to make that assumption that what he said by claiming that he wanted to hide a treasure in the Appalachians, that there's that relationship. So that's the first thing. You could, there may be some confirmation bias in that, so that you could invest in it. The question that I would have is if you made that assumption and you began and you started centering your search on that mountain in Colorado, not necessarily the one in Appalachia. But if you assume that what he was doing was giving us a hint, and you went and started centering your search solutions around that mountain in Colorado, where would you be? What more would you need? Where are the Warm Waters Halt? Where is the canyon down? So it could very well be, if you, and I'm not suggesting to you that you come to that conclusion, but if you did come to that conclusion, made that comparison, you ask yourself then, what does that get me if I compare it? Because that's the question that Shelley is always asking me as I come up with these comparisons and ideas like that. And she says, how does that get me closer to the treasure? So in a way, the question after that is, let's assume that's true. Let's say he's indicating in some way that I should start on the mountain with the same name in the Colorado Rockies. How does that get me closer to the treasure? And can I develop a credible solution that would get me whose boots on the ground wouldn't be a waste of time, money, and effort? And I think that's the thing, that series of questions there has helped me more than anything else to focus the results of my research and those kinds of instances, if you will, of coincidence, because that's what it is at this point. It's a coincidence. He mentioned the Appalachians. We're searching in the Rockies. There's two mountains of the same name. Does that mean something? That's not the question to ask. The question to ask is, if it does mean something, how does that get me closer to the treasure?
Well, I would like to invite you and Shelley to go next week, boots on the ground with me. I have some physical limitations, and I would love to invite you to go search my final solve.
Oh, where is your final solution? Well, I'm not going to ask you that. It really depends on our schedule.
Well, I'll tell you, it's on Roan Plateau in Colorado.
All right. Is that?
It's highly precise.
So tell me, if I were to divide Colorado into 4 sections, north and south and east and west, are we talking northwest, northeast, southeast, or southwest Colorado?
Western, central Colorado.
Central, western Colorado. Interesting. Okay, well, I will talk to my partner about our plans for next week, and I have your phone number, and we will contact you regarding what we'd like to do. Okay?
Excellent. Let's do this.
It sounds exciting.
Bye.
All right, ma'am. Have a good evening. That was a fun call. So let's see. So this is Elizabeth from Maryland. I have an opinion of the first clue where warm waters. Oh, we're back to Elizabeth from Maryland. I think. Oh, doggone it. So we're doing the same. Elizabeth, you're going to have to give me something to work with besides a bunch of disassociated sentences. If you have an opinion, as you state here, that you think you know where Warm Waters Halt is, tell me and I will share it with all the people in the room, because all of us think that we know where Warm Waters Halt is and none of us have the treasure. So you might as well add your thoughts to that extended conversation. So here we are, Julia from Chicago again. This is following up to my first question about astronomical references in the book. Maybe a sky map is a good map. Wow, very good. Who's it? Julia. Nice thinking. So we talked earlier in the evening about the right kind of map. Jason left me a message about the right kind of map to use. And Julia, having apparently an interest in the astronomical, suggested, well, maybe the right map is a sky map. And as those of you who have any interest in astronomy at all, there is a hemispherical map of the sky that actually, if you look at Google has I think it's called Google Sky. If you look at Google Sky, it is effectively a interactive map of the sky, starting with the sky over your head, going down to the horizon, northeast, south, and west. And that's an interesting thought. That's a very nice thought. I like that, Susan. That's worth investigating a little bit. So this is Anon to follow up the Appalachian comment. If talking about the LGFI, so the LGFI, if you go back to the original code, is actually the LGII. He calls her the little girl in India, not the little girl from India. So if talking about the LGII, it would be the Himalayas. Was the use of Appalachian be a mistake or a hint? I don't think it's either, actually. Okay, now the fun starts. This is Heather Dawn, and I resolved the gremlins. Heather Dawn, just give me a second, and there you are. Hi, Heather Dawn. How are you doing, and what's your question?
I can hear you.
Yes, and I can hear you, sweetie. So how are we doing?
I just want to say, I'm going to try and do it fast, but I want to say how I got involved in this. Is that okay?
Okay, but you got to keep it short. Tell me, and you're talking this, meaning how you got involved in the search. Is that correct?
The chase.
Yeah, okay. So
yeah, the chase.
So tell us all how you got involved in the chase in the short version.
Okay, the long version short. Okay, so I moved here October 9th, 2015, moved away in January in 2016, came back in late June 2016, and was at the Silver Dollar Bar and had a panic attack in there and was sitting outside on a bench, and some guy walked out kind of tipsy. He's like, "Do you know why I'm here?" And I'm like, "No." And he said, "Have you ever heard of Forrest Fenn?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Google him." And then come to find out his name is Aaron Gardone, and he was the searcher from Pennsylvania, two-time scholar, and he was 99.99% sure that it wasn't Kerwin, and he told me that he would split it with me if I was his boots on the ground.
Wow. And so that's how you got interested in the search. So I take it his Kerwin solution wasn't as good as you both thought it might be. Is he still searching as well?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him, but he was out last summer. I talked to him, and he had been up to Kerwin and Yellowstone. But so I went from Kerwin a couple of times, and then I went to Sinks Canyon, and then I went to Dead Man's View, and then I came back to Cody, and then I solved it.
Wow. And then you what? What was
solved it.
You what? Tell me again that word. What are you using there?
I have solved Fenn's clues. I solved.
Oh, you've solved it.
I solved Fenn's clues.
Okay,
I'm really
right.
smart.
Okay, you've solved it. Well, so I would give you the same advice that I would probably give one of my daughters: don't hang out in bars, because apparently they cause panic attacks.
Definitely not. I learned a lesson.
Yeah. And don't waste any time. If you've got the solution to finding that treasure, get your boots on the ground as quickly as you possibly can, and recover that baby.
Amen.
Amen, sister. All right. You have a good evening.
Amen,
Thanks.
brother.
So you have a good evening. I'm glad we finally got to talk. All right.
You too.
Bye now.
Amen. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Heather Dawn, always fun to talk to. Okay, from Ben Downing. Man, Ben is just boom, boom, boom. Let's see what Ben, tell me when to stop because I have lots of questions. Ben, that's what this show is all about, answering questions, even though the responses are my opinion and you have to accept them with a grain of salt. Okay, but I will answer questions as long as you're asking them. How close to the treasure do you think one can get from the infamous armchair, both in terms of number of clues and physical distance? Forrest has reinforced regularly that you can get you can decipher the first two clues from an armchair. After that, you have to be boots on the ground. We agree. We feel, in our humble opinion, we're what we call small-scale solvers. We believe that if you've resolved the first two clues and you have identified them by being boots on the ground, you are at that point less than 1,000 feet from the treasure. Small-scale solve. You are not going to be traveling across Yellowstone Park. Okay. This is a text message from a person who goes by, they say, I go by Faith Hunter. Another idea for warm water salt. It was part of a solve that didn't work out. Cedar Mountain in Cody was made from hot sulfuric water that rose up and created the mountains and cave. Spirit Cave lines up. The water is no longer in the cave. So to go down the canyon / cave with no paddle up your creek. No place for the meek. Original name was Frost Cave. Guy named Claude Brown tried to make it popular for tourists, but it was too far to walk. He tried to put a tram in. He lit the inside of the cave, which creates a chase in the walls where electric cables ran. Ooh, chase, I get it. And you are in the wood inside Cedar Mountain. There are so many things that line up, but nope, he says, not there. That's that's a very creative solution. I'd say that was very well done, very well thought out, and I think that's what you have to do. But I'm going to go back to what somebody said earlier this evening. I got to turn that poem into a map. See how I can turn that poem into a map. Okay, so I think. Whoops, I got one more here. Toby, this is from Susie. Toby, what do you think of the idea of each of the 9 clues in a different location? So I guess you're going to have to clarify. It is obvious to me that each of the 9 clues is in a separate location. I think maybe the question you're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how far one clue is from the other. And I'll express this opinion again. We believe that the 9 clues are within, from clue 1, when this is how we measure it, from clue 1 to clue 9 is 1,000 feet or less. We do not believe that from clue 1 that the clues are miles apart in terms of their location. We think there's a very good chance that you, although you may not know it, you will be able to see clue 3 from clue 2, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very short distance as far as we're concerned. We think the expansion of the distance between clue 1 and clue 9 creates a whole set of logistics problems that you're going to add to the problem. You're going to add to the problem of finding the treasure by creating a whole set of logistics problems that you don't need. So it doesn't make sense to me what makes sense to me is that he parked his car, packed his bag, walked 1,000 feet or less, hid treasure, hid chest, or however he did it, walked back to his car, and drove home for dinner. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, let me go down. So from Matt Brewer. So Matt is my friend from Arizona who has a drone company, and he flies drones for a living. And he's been on our program a couple of times. When we talk about technology, I always invite Matt because he's a technology guy. He says, if Forrest knows that searchers have been within 200 feet of the treasure because they've told him exactly where they were, how does he know that non-searchers have been within 500 feet? Do you think he can see via webcam, or do you think the treasure is within 500 feet of a relatively traveled path? Matt, we think the latter rather than the former. And a good example is that in the area that we search along the Rio de los Pinos, within 500 feet of that search area is the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad. We wave at people when we're down in the valley searching as they pass up above us. So we think the 500-foot reference is to a well-traveled thoroughfare within 500 feet of where the treasure is located, but not visible from where they are, and they're not thinking about looking for it. So yeah, I would say it was the latter rather than the former. So where are we? Okay, we've got. I'm gonna finish about 9 o'clock because that puts you East Coasters at 11. I think we've had a good time tonight with Q&A. If you have time for one more call, this would be a good time because the phone lines are open. Call us and we'll talk. So let me make sure I've gotten everybody's. Oops, here's one from Sean Martinez. So Sean says 2 questions. Would it make a big difference if the poem read, begin it where cold waters halt, or where cold waters begin? Wow. So not if you believed it was in New Mexico because... Oh, well, okay, so Sean, I'm at the disadvantage of having my opinion about the difference between warm waters and not warm waters, okay? So in New Mexico, of course, we know, we've had this conversation, that it's warm waters versus either trout waters or special trout waters. As far as the New Mexico Game and Fish Department is concerned, there are no cold waters in New Mexico. So yes, I think it would have made a difference, and the difference it would have made is that I wouldn't be using the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations as the basis for my solution. I also think that it would have made the whole process of finding your starting point or an order of magnitude more difficult. I think the fact that he uses the phrase warm waters and the word halt is very important, and to have changed those words not just changes the structure of the poem, but increases, and you know how I feel about the difficulty of the poem now. You know, I did a show just a couple of weeks ago insisting that he over-engineered it and underestimated how difficult it was. And I think by changing that phrase the way that you have described here, it is very likely that you've increased the difficulty factor by an order of magnitude. So he has a second question here. Would it make a big difference to you if the poem read, begin at where cold waters... Yes, as I just said, if the word cold was used, it would exclude the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations as the basis for my warm water solution, because there, as far as I said, the New Mexico Game and Fish Department is concerned, there are no cold waters in New Mexico. They are warm waters, there are trout waters, and there are special trout waters. So it would have a significant impact on my solution. Thankfully, he didn't do that. Okay, got a couple more coming in here. And it's from Ben again. Let's see, is this Ben Downing? Yeah, Ben Downing. Okay, Ben, you are taking advantage here. Good job keeping the show moving, brother. Based on your last answer to my question, you think all 8 clues are in the Rocky Mountains. Did you always think that way, or did you change your mind along the way? If you did not change, why? So I'm assuming you actually meant 9 clues and not 8. We believe, as we keep saying, all the clues are within, from clue 1 to clue 9, are within 1,000 feet of one another, and that it would be very difficult to take that model and figure out how much of it you want to put outside the Rocky Mountains, because I think the hard part would be to determine, like, what exactly are the Rocky Mountains? I mean, we debate that. We didn't know, for example, with the Rio Grande, all of us as searchers didn't know that the Rio Grande River wasn't in the Rocky Mountains. And so if you like us are small scale solvers, solution solvers. Oh, I don't know what the right word is there. But if you, like us, are small scale, then the small scale would eliminate the idea that your scale, that 1,000 feet that I've already described, part of it is outside the Rocky Mountains, because then what you would have to do is have a discussion about the Rocky Mountain. Where are the end of the Rocky Mountains? Where are the edges? Where exactly are the borders, if you will, of the Rocky Mountains? I think that would be a terrible discussion, not a terrible discussion, but a really hard discussion to have. And so I don't know. I think that, again, you're making it harder. Not you. It would make it for us harder than it needed to be. Okay, so still we got some text coming in. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, I don't see a name or a place. So guys, come on. I need to at least see your name and where you're coming from. Give me your name. If you have a question, at least give me your name and where the state that you're calling from. Just like this guy. Hi, Toby, or lady. Hi, Toby. This is Jamie from Illinois. People have already solved the first clue, but didn't understand its importance. Why do you think that is? My opinion is knowing its importance means you understand the poem. I think he has always said, and I think we talked about this earlier, he said things like, if you don't know what the first clue is, stay home and play canasta. I think it's important because it avoids you investing time, effort, and money in going to look for a treasure in which you haven't solidly identified the first clue. I think that's why it's so important. I don't necessarily believe that it's important that it's somehow related, like, he's also said things like, if you can get to the first two clues, you're metaphorically 50% closer to the treasure, which is logical, especially if you're doing a small-scale solution. But I think his opinion is that if you can get those first two clues figured out without being boots on the ground, validating them by being boots on the ground, yes, that is where Warm Waters Halt, that is the canyon down, that you've increased your chances significantly of finding that treasure if you're there and you're actually looking in that space as opposed to hoping what it looks like on Google Earth. I think that's what he meant by the importance thereof. It is important because, as usual, if you don't have it, you're not going to make any headway on finding the treasure. So comment, did you know that a small railroad stop is called a halt? I didn't until I was informed of that by Jack Selvage, who was the gentleman, and his wife Johanna, that found our baby mammoth skull with the coin that we put in there. He informed me of that because he uses that concept, the railroad stop being a halt. He uses that concept as the basis for part of his solution. So we didn't know it until then. Okay, so 8 more hours. Thanks, K-Pro. 8 more hours to go. Yeah. All right. So I'm not getting calls. Texts are done. Shelley has done a great job of taking care of the chat room by answering all the questions in there. Bless her heart. I didn't mean to put that much pressure on her. So I just want to say thanks to those of you that did call in tonight. I really appreciate having those conversations. As you can tell, it's just a lot of fun for me. So I think we're going to keep doing this on Friday nights. It's not a big crowd for us. We've had bigger, but it gives me the opportunity. As you ask those questions of me, it forces me to have to think about my solutions and my answers, and giving the opportunity to present them in a public forum like this, I get some feedback. So this is a really good process for me. Not only do I enjoy it, but I feel like I'm learning from it. So I think we're going to keep doing this. So I've got a couple more questions coming in. Text message. This is Hellion 944 from Cajun County, Louisiana. Wow. How cool is that? Cajun County, Louisiana. The question is, do you feel like the treasure is underwater? No, I do not feel like the treasure is underwater. I think, again, that would create a whole new set of problems for us. I think the other thing that you have to consider is that his original plan and the special place that he selected was one that he selected not only to place the treasure, but where he planned to lay down his body next to the treasure and allow himself the luxury of dying. Hang on. And allow himself the luxury of dying next to that treasure. Putting the treasure underwater makes that concept impossible. So no, I don't think it's underwater. Oh, Ben Downing, he's taking advantage. Okay. Forrest had said many people underestimate the first clue. How important do you think it is? Should we all stay home and play canasta until we are certain about the first clue? The answer is yes. I don't think it is our opinion that unless you have a geographically precise resolution of the first clue, that you're just guessing, or that you're saying it could be in this area or it's about here, until you have a geographically precise location for your first clue, begin at where warm waters halt, if that is indeed your first clue, and that's what he's told us, then stay home, because I know from the experience of 32 recons that if it's at all iffy, you're going to realize you were the problem is bigger than you imagined, and B, your solution was horribly wrong. I don't mean horribly wrong, but you've got to have that. If you can't pinpoint on a map where your warm waters halt, my advice is stay home, based on my experience. But hey, I think everybody should go out in the field, and I think everybody should. I think everyone should have the experience of their first boots on the ground, regardless of how good their solution is. I think you should take that solution, go put boots on the ground, look around, see how big this damn space is out here in the West, have a good time, chase some grizzly bears, and just enjoy yourself, and then go home and start getting serious about a reasonable, a reconcilable and reasonable solution. So I'm a big fan of getting out. I'm like Fenn. I want you all to get out into the outdoors and chase bears. Okay, so I think that's it. God bless you all. You know what? That's very specious of me. I don't believe in God, but bless you all for joining me tonight. I hope you had a great time in the chat room. I hope you found this entertaining and informative. Thank you, Shelley Carney. I didn't know if any of the other moderators were in the room because I can't see the chat, but if you moderators were in the room, thank you very much for your help and keeping it going. Jason Michael, thank you for coming in and being such a good son and helping us. We got to figure out how to get past that restricted phone number because I can't answer your calls, but I'm glad you were fast enough to leave a voicemail. That was good. Okay, anything else before we go? Last reminder, don't forget tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, we're going to play a live stream of all our videos from the week. It's going to be an open chat room. We may or may not be there, but there won't be any questions, live phone calls, simply our videos so you can catch up and so that you can chat with other members of the community. Okay? Thank you all. I hope it's been as much fun for you as it has been for me. And of course, we'll see you all next week as we lay out our programming for the following week, okay? Otherwise, have a good Friday night, have a great weekend, and we look forward to sharing in the excitement of looking for this darned treasure with you next week.